Welcome to the Truth TV Show.
So the Egyptian pharaohs receive a very powerful burial ceremony because the people believe that if they don't bury them well and make them immortal, the pharaohs will control and punish them, the living, even after the death of the pharaohs. So the pharaohs of Egypt were deemed as gods. Okay? But they were gods because they belonged to a very powerful group of people. That is the pharaohs. These were the ruling class. Okay? Now, Japanese emperors who lived between 660 and 1945 CE also claimed to be gods. Okay, at least as we see from the writings of some Shintoists. Chinese emperors between 221 BCE and 1911 CE were also deified as sons of heaven. Then, of course, the Roman emperors from 42 BCE to 363 CE were declared to be gods. Following Julius Caesar, who in 42 BCE was formally deified as the divine Julius, and then also Caesar Augustus, who henceforth became Divine Filius, which means the son of the divine one. So many, though not all, the Roman emperors declared themselves to be gods. They include Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Hadrian, Commodus, Constantine I, Julian the Apostate, etc. All these Roman emperors believed they were gods who needed to be worshipped. And so if you go to Rome, it is not uncommon at all to see the statues of these emperors, even in some temples, okay, and in some imperial courts, where people literally go there and bow down and worship these people because they believe they are gods. Okay, so we can point to several groups of people who believe they were gods under this category. Let me talk about the second group, those who were deified posthumously, that is after they are dead. We can talk about Romulus and Remus. Okay, when you study the history of Rome, you will see that there is this, now there's a debate about it, whether this is mythological or this is actual. Many scholars think it is a true story. You see that there is a story that there is a son of a certain deity called Rhea Silvia, who is a vestal virgin, like Virgin Mary. I'll show you the link between all of these things. Who became pregnant with two twins. So there's a virgin, a holy virgin, who is pregnant with two twins. The first one is called Romulus. The second one is called Remus. And this virgin was impregnated by the god who controls planet Mars. So after the death of Romulus, okay, who is the first twin, he was posthumously deified to be the god known as Quirinus, which is a divine person worshipped by the Roman people. Then Romulus is believed to have ascended to heaven. And then after he was deified to be God, he started ruling and appearing to the people in dreams and in visions, etc. So this is one story or one account that you find in Roman history, that Romulus and Remus were twin sons who were born to a vestal virgin who was impregnated by a god that rules planet Mars. And then afterwards, after these two twin sons died, they were raised from the dead, and then they ascended into heaven, and they started ruling over the lives of the people, and the people started worshiping them. Okay, so this is one story. We can talk about the Buddha. I mentioned before. Buddha himself, 563 BCE, is believed to be an avatar of Vishnu. So Buddha is supposed to also be an avatar of another figure they deified who existed before Buddha. We can talk about Pythagoras. You probably studied him in school, Pythagoras theorem. Pythagoras was deemed as a god. In fact, there's a religion even today known as Pythagoreanism. The followers of Pythagoras believed that he was a god. And there is some kind of posthumous legend about Pythagoras that Pythagoras was the mortal incarnation of another philosopher who lived before him known as Apollo. And that Pythagoras had to prove his immortality, okay, by showing his golden tie. That Pythagoras actually had a golden tie somewhere, and then he showed it to somebody that, hey, look at this, I am immortal. I mean, the one you studied in school, c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. He wasn't treated as a small man at all. He was actually believed to be a god. Okay, and of course, you may have heard about Alexander the Great. He was treated by his Greek followers as a god. Alexander the Great is the one who conquered all the known world in his lifetime at the age of 33. It is believed that after he had conquered all the territories, he wept because there was no more worlds to conquer. After his death, his followers deified him. They believed he was a god. You see that? So that's posthumous deification. Now, I want to say that Jesus Christ of Nazareth, likely I would put him under this group of leaders who were posthumously deified. Okay? Although, when you look at some of the gospel accounts, it appears as if Jesus believed he had a divine origin, but he didn't really make very emphatic, categorical claims. Okay? It is his followers who declared him to be God, and we see that mainly in the Pauline epistles, okay? Especially in Romans 1, where Paul believes that Jesus of Nazareth became a God after his resurrection from the dead. Now, that's controversial. So some scholars think that probably Paul, being a Roman, remember Paul had dual citizenship. He was both a Roman and a Jew. Some people think that Paul picked, how will I put it? He plagiarized this Roman notion, okay, of gods who were born of virgins and died and rose from the dead, and became gods. Some scholars think that Paul is superimposing that Roman philosophy on Jesus of Nazareth. Others think that no, before Paul came, there were still traditions, okay, that Jesus of Nazareth actually died and was raised from the dead, and he became a god and all of that. So this is the group of people who were posthumously deified. I don't have time to talk about Antonius. And then, do you know that even Mary, the mother of Jesus, was deified to be a goddess? Because, of course, she gave birth to the Son of God. So there are people who worship Mary, the mother of Jesus, to be a goddess. Some people actually believe that Mary, the mother of Jesus, intercedes for them in heaven on the right hand side of God. You understand that? Yeah. So you can see where all these things is coming from. And then the third group of people are those who were involuntarily deified. They include people like Ezra in the Jewish Bible, the one who established the second temple. We have Antiochus Theos II. In fact, there's a story in the book of Acts 14 verse 8 to 18 where even Paul, the apostle, and Barnabas were taught by the people that they were gods. Okay? Because the people actually thought that it was two Greek gods, Hermes and Zeus. Hermes referring to Paul, and then Zeus referring to Barnabas, because they had performed miracles. And the people thought that no, the gods have visited us. Okay? Now we can talk about Haile Selassie the First. Haile Selassie the First is also believed by his followers, that is the Rastafari movement, to be a god. They believe that Haile Selassie the First is actually the second coming of Jesus Christ himself, and that Haile Selassie is God incarnate, and that he's actually the Black Messiah, and that he's the earth's rightful ruler. He's the one who is supposed to lead the African people, the black people, into freedom. Rastas therefore believe that imperial titles like, King of Kings, Conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, Root of David, that's how they address Haile Selassie. They believe that all these things show that Haile Selassie is actually the return of the Messiah, and it's a fulfillment of Revelation chapter 5 verse 5. So we see that their faith in the divinity of Haile Selassie first appeared in Jamaica soon after the 1930 coronation in Addis Ababa. And before his coronation, Haile Selassie I was always referred to as Ras. See, people have been hearing it, maybe Rastafari. That's how they pronounce it. They are actually two words joined. Ras means prince. So they join and say Rastafari. So it's supposed to be Ras, prince, which is for prince, and then Tafari means Messiah. So Rastafari means he's a prince, a Messiah, a savior, a king, the ruler, the God. That's the meaning of Rastafari. So you see that Haile Selassie has a whole movement of people behind him, the Rastafarians, who believe that he is their Messiah. Now, Haile Selassie never claimed that he was a God. It's the followers who did that involuntarily. Okay. Then we have the last group of people, those who claim to be God themselves or who made themselves God. Okay. There are a lot of them. We can talk about Empedocles of Akragas. We can talk about Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth. We can talk about Antiochus Theos the first, and a host of them. These people believed that they were gods, and they declared themselves gods in their lifetime. So why am I talking about all of these things in relation to your question? I'm trying to say that the question of whether gods can be incarnated in the body of man is very tough, and historically is difficult, okay, to prove that. All that we see historically rather is a constellation of human beings who either declared themselves to be God, or were posthumously believed to be gods, or they were declared to be gods wrongly by their followers, or they declared themselves to be God in their own lifetime. That is all that we can ascertain historically. Okay, so that is what I'll say in response to your question.
Well, viewers of the Truth TV show, like we have always promised you, and we will not break our promise, that over here, evidence is the rule of the game. We do not accept things on the face value. We probe into the matter to find out what the truth actually is, and that is what we are after. So if you are out there and religion has not eaten a chunk of your brains, and you still have some sense of logical reasoning and critical thinking, then this is the show for you. But if you are hyper religious and extremely sensitive and intolerant of other people's views and opinion, and anything that is said which is outside the circumference of your awareness get you offended, then this is not the show for you. But if you are open-minded, if you are objective, if you are looking for knowledge and truth, then this is the show for you. So if you have gone through all this, then it means that you have to stick with us throughout this discussion. We have a lot that we are going to discuss. This is just the introduction. So this is Jesus under investigation. We are going to scrutinize objectively, open-minded, to try and find out the claims about Jesus, whether they can be verified historically or not. And that is what we are doing. Thank you very much, Polymath. I also want to find out from you if there are any strong evidences and reasons substantiating the incarnation and virgin birth of Jesus.
That's another tough question. I can't give a straightforward yes or no response to this question. But what I can say is that we still need to examine the documents at our disposal to draw our own conclusions. So first, we need to look at the historical accounts. We need to examine what secular historians believed or wrote before and after Christ. Now, I want to talk about these groups of beings that you find stories about them in secular history, which also looks very much similar to the Jesus Christ story. Now, watch this carefully. Okay, we'll be displaying it on the screen. Now, watch this. I want to talk about Horus. The earliest secular account that you have about beings who were incarnated is Horus from Egypt. That you can find it as late as 3000 BC. This is from Egypt, Horus. Horus is supposed to be a divine being who had the head of a falcon. Nobody really saw his face very well. So when you see images of him, it looks like he's falcon-headed. Okay, but he's a god, who deserves to be worshipped. Horus is purported to have been born on 25th December. He was born of a virgin. His birth was accompanied by a star in the east. He was adorned by 3 kings at his birth. He was a teacher at age 12. He was baptized and started his ministry at age 30. He had 12 disciples. He performed miracles. He healed the sick. He walked on water. And he was called with such names as the truth, the light, the anointed Son of God, the good shepherd, the Lamb of God. And interestingly, now I know a lot of things might be going on in your minds and probably in the minds of maybe Christians. Interestingly, Horus is believed to have been betrayed by one of his closest followers known as Typhon. And afterwards, Horus was crucified, he died, he was buried for 3 days, and then he resurrected after 3 days. Now,
Hold on, I may have to interject you on this one.
Okay.
This one sounds similar to the account of Jesus that we know of.
exactly. And I'm
this
going to give you a lot of
existed
them.
before Jesus.
Yes, this is 3,000 years before Jesus Christ appeared on earth. This legendary story was already in Egypt, in Africa. I mean, if anybody cares about Egypt, Egypt is in Africa.
Wow.
Now, by the time I'm done, you would understand what might account for what we call the Jesus as a myth school. You might really appreciate why some scholars have concluded that Jesus is a myth.
Yeah.
And others think that the story of Jesus Christ is not unique in itself, and that it was plagiarized from some previous mythologies or legendary accounts that predated him. So this is as early as 3,000 years before Jesus appeared. There is this legendary deity known as Horus, who lived in Egypt. So that's the first one. Let me talk about Attis. Attis is also believed to be a Greek godlike figure who lived 1200 BC. Attis was born on December 25th. Attis was born of a virgin. Attis was crucified, he died, was buried for 3 days, and resurrected. Think about it. This was 1200 years before Jesus Christ appears. Then we have Krishna from India, 900 BC. Krishna from India. Krishna was born of a virgin. His birth was accompanied by a star in the east. Krishna had 12 disciples. Krishna performed miracles. He healed the sick. He walked on water. Krishna died and was resurrected. Think about that. Then we also have the story of Dionysus from Greece, 500 years before Christ, 500 BC. Born on December 25th, born of a virgin. His birth was accompanied by a star in the east. Had 12 disciples. He performed miracles, particularly he turned water into wine. He was called the King of Kings, God's only begotten Son. He was called the Alpha and the Omega. Dionysus died and was resurrected after 3 days. Then also, I know many things are going on in the minds of our viewers. Keep calm. This is the Truth TV show where evidence is the rule of the game, and that's it. I'm not the one who concocted these facts are there. Okay, you can actually cross-check them for yourself. Then we can talk about